You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiro Moguls, Local Gold, Chiro Thin, McCaffrey's Clinical Mentoring, and Chiropractic Rocks. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to the monumental 150th episode of Chiro Hustle, the podcast. I'm your co-host, Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Scott Watier, and if you want to know more about performance and lifestyle balance, stay tuned. All right, so we are live with Dr. Scott Watier. This is a freaking milestone for us, episode 150. And I think that there's a lot to be said about perseverance and consistency. And that's something that we were discussing a little bit off camera with you, perseverance and consistency in both practice and in life. And Luke and I are just a couple misfit dudes that decided to start creating content on chiropractic and sharing the big idea with the masses. And there's so much to be said about the network that we've built, but also there's a lot to be said about what you've been up to. And I know that there's a huge story behind the man behind that microphone there. So I just wanted to have you in the same fashion that we do all of our interviews in. We love to have our guests share with our audience who they are and why did they become a chiropractor. So if you could share with our audience tonight, why did you get into the chiropractic profession and tell us your chiropractic story?
Awesome. I can definitely do that. Thanks for having me on. Honored to be here. And bonus, didn't know it was episode 150. So that's super cool. To answer your question as succinctly as possible, why did I become a chiropractor? So started back in the day. And I didn't know what chiropractic was growing up. My family was not, first, second generation, third generation. They were very medically inclined. And I grew up with a lot of allergies and asthma and taking mixing the medications in the applesauce to hide the taste and going to the doctors and having allergy tests and all that fun stuff. Growing up in the cold New England area, snow every year, hot, humid summers, I was a train wreck when it came to my health. And after missing a ton of school and a bunch of emergency ambulance visits to the hospital, my dad had a friend at work that said, "Why don't you take your son to a chiropractor?" And he's like, "A what?" And so he took me, and I went to a doc who attended Palmer and started getting adjusted. And I remember that first thoracic adjustment I've ever had, and it was cold outside when we went because it was worse in the winter for me. And I remember like gasping and taking like this big deep breath for like the first time in so long. And I just remember like that feeling is what fueled me, to get back to playing sports and lettering in 2 sports in high school. And it literally was like the turning point for me. I didn't know the principle. I didn't know innate. I just knew that like I went and did this thing and I felt a heck of a lot better than all the other crap I was taking or inhaling or, all the testing. I just knew that like something had happened and I was like, whoa. And I in that moment, I remember thinking, okay, so all of those nights of like my mom, like making sure I don't die because I'm literally like wheezing myself to sleep at night, like it all changed. So I knew in junior high, because up there, high school's 9 through 12, I remember going to my guidance counselor and being like, "Hey, I want to be a chiropractor." She's like, "What?" She had no idea what it was. So yeah, right. I was like, okay, well, this is going to be good. Back then I didn't have that perspective, but in the moment I was probably kind of confused. And I, navigated that, went to undergrad in biology, nutrition, anatomy, physiology, always kind of had that science itch, the science nerd in me, and took a lot of time off in between going back to grad school, got lost in the restaurant business and managing restaurants and having fun in undergrad. And finally woke up one day and that little voice I remember when I was my first thoracic adjustment, when I took that deep breath, woke up on Christmas Eve morning at my parents' house, hungover, like hurting. And I remember saying to myself, "Hey, you promised yourself you're going to go back to school by 2008." And it was like 6 days away from being 2008. So let the holiday pass, got rid of the hangover and couple days later, called my mom and said, "Hey, I'm going to Florida." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm applying to Palmer." And flew down, found an apartment, did my interview, got all my transcripts sent, and 2.5 months later, I was enrolled. So got deep into, I was luckily exposed at Palmer to the principal because I was going into it for sports because that's how it affected my life. I was like, man, my life's been changed. I can play sports. I love this. Back to basketball, golf. I'm like, yes. So I was like, all right, I want to go be a chiropractor to help people in the sports field. And I got in. I was like, yeah, that's not really what I want. And I had, Dr. Shreve, who was there in Palmer. He was the Green Book guy. And I just dove in. And I realized that what I had happened when I was 12 was the principal, like innate. It was there. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. So that's when I became like the technique head. I was like, let me go to all the groups, Gonstead and Mopal, which was really just moving stuff around. And then we had Toggle and upper cervical and, Thompson. And I just loved all of that so much. And I got hooked up with, a coaching group, when I was in school and, just kind of followed their path into practice. And it was crazy because when I initially went in with what I thought was my reason for being a chiropractor, ended up completely changing through being in practice for full time for 7 years. And I know you and I kind of talked about it a little bit, before we hopped on, but it's like my purpose now of becoming a chiropractor is so much greater than just, teaching the principal one-on-one. In this medium and in this world that we live in now in technology, we can get this message out to so many more people. It was crazy. My health was gained and given back to me through chiropractic, but then being in full-time practice and not having the right balance, I lost my health. My triglycerides were 900. I was 60 pounds overweight. My asthma came back. I did all the metabolic and functional testing. I spent thousands of dollars. I have degrees in this stuff. I should be able to figure it out. I have this huge network that I'm a part of. We're seeing hundreds of patients a week. The clinic's growing, $1 million practice. I'm like, this is it. And I'm sick and miserable again. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And I lost track of that focus. I lost track of who I was and why I started, and for me, it was getting my health back to be better. From at the time when I started practice, I didn't have a wife. I didn't have kids. Now I do. And it's completely changed my perspective of the importance of pulling people out of the matrix and teaching them the principle that their body is destined and supposed to be able to heal and function without any interference. And that can be applied to any part of health. In my opinion, not just, for me, it was insulin and diabetes resistance that was undiagnosed. And I started fasting and, was able to regain my health again. But if I didn't have that innate principle that happened way back at that first adjustment when I realized something crazy happened, like I feel good again, it never would have taken place. So just kind of crazy to think back and actually speak it into existence, because I don't know if I've ever explained it that way.
Well, some of the things you're saying there give me like a sense of pause for the profession, because the chiropractor is the first one to tell another chiropractor how they should be practicing or why they're doing it wrong, or what the coaching group tells you should be attaining. And I think that you touched on a lot of those topics just now, is like, if you decide you want to pivot outside of what you were doing, that's okay. And if a chiropractor decides that they want to go a different direction with their licensing, that's okay. And I think that if you want to see 700 people a week like you were doing, that's okay. But I think that when people get to the point of burnout, that's real. And a lot of times when a person wants to reinvent themselves, it's not because they're on fire with their work every day. It's because they need to do something different to feed themselves. And there's a reason you became a chiropractor on day one. And there's a reason that you're still a chiropractor day wherever we're at right now. But there's also the reason why your community is going to benefit from you figuring out what's best for you. And that's something that we should all learn from as the chiropractic profession, is not to judge the other practitioner for how they choose to practice or not practice. And that's something that we have to be sensitive about. Obviously, as you're saying, stay principled and do the right things, and do it for your family, do it for your purpose, do it for your education, do it for your community, but also do it for your sensibility.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I was sitting there listening. I'm thinking back to when, my journey of my influence, right? So you are they say that you are the addition of the 5 people that you spend the most time with because it affects your habits. Well, I came from a guy who practiced Palmer package, and he was like, yeah, this is what I can do, and go do it. And then I got into school and I was molded by, Dr. Shreve, but then also these groups that were teaching me how to adjust. And then I was like, man, this is exactly, I saw these people on stage and I was like, that's what I want, and I was just young and I didn't know any better. You don't know throughout not having the experience. So at one point I stopped and I was like, okay, no, let me regain, because I was losing, I was getting sicker every year. My numbers were getting worse. My energy was getting worse. I'm like, something isn't resonating for me. And back in the day, if you would have told me you practiced a certain way, or if you didn't do what I did, I would have been like, what? No, that's wrong. Your chiropractor doesn't take x-rays. Well, guess what? My wife practices and has an amazing ICPA pediatric and pregnancy practice. She doesn't take x-rays because she takes care of pregnant women. So just that thought of thinking about passing that judgment on to someone else in the profession, doing something for them. Yeah, man, back in the day, I probably would have been, I drank the Kool-Aid and I would have been like, no, you got to do it this way. CBP is the only way. This is the only one that's researched, whatever it was. And now I'm sitting there going, no, we have the ability to reach so many more people if we remove all of that crap. So just sitting here listening to you explain it that way, I was like, man, yeah, that's it.
Well, judgment's heavy, man. And whenever the profession is under the scrutiny of the outside forces, the chiropractors need to be easy on each other, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get Luke involved. I know that Luke's been on waiting to talk to you as well.
Yeah.
So now that you're in the chiropractic space practicing, what would you say makes you unique or sets you apart from other chiropractors?
Oh man, put me on the spot, Luke. If I listen to if I answered that with my own logical analytical brain, it'd be different. But I've learned to listen to my wife because she's pretty smart. And the other outside influences, my close friends. I would say it's my ability to connect. Where, man, I love people. I love helping people. I don't care what time of day. If you need to borrow my pickup truck, I listened to Chris Zano one day, and he's just north of me here in Houston, and he's always been kind of someone I've looked at when I was in the high volume model, looking at that as the mountaintop. But I heard him say one day, do more of what makes you vibrate and less of which creates that pit in your stomach. And for me, it's that connection with people. I was never great at the follow through on the business side, but people always were willing to come with me. And when I get in that conversation and I can turn that light bulb on for someone, which is kind of breaking down the complex into a simple concept, taking the complex issue that this person is coming in with, that they've been suffering with, that nobody listens to, and being able to just break it down to them simply and having them, feel encouraged and filled with hope. That connection is what makes me vibrate. That's the thing that's part of it. That's the main part of it for me. And I didn't realize that back in the day. It was just about adjust more and more and more and more. So I think that would be the best way I could answer that.
Do you have any favorite motivational quotes, mantras, inspirational phrases that light you on fire?
I am awful at that ability to recall. There's some people I know, as a Christian, that can just pick up a verse and be like, boom, here it is. So I can tell you the people that I follow I look to, but like to have I'm not a very words person. I'm more kinesthetic, hands-on. So it kind of fits, right? But the people that I follow at this point that are, that I look to for guidance, Ed's one of them, Ed Osborne, Dr. Ed, Darren Hardy, who is just completely transformed my business, my chiropreneur side, my entrepreneur side, where I didn't even realize I was lacking because it was always just about serving when I started practice. Right now, those two are probably the two I resonate with the most. It's been, I'm always willing to listen. And if you're already doing it, I'm just going to go do it. Why go recreate it, right?
That's a good quote.
Yeah, right. Don't reinvent the wheel. I guess that would be a good one to fit the answer to your question succinctly. Would be don't reinvent the wheel.
That's a good one. How do you think the world would change if everyone got under consistent chiropractic care instead of the small margin that they're seeing now?
Man, Luke, you got the questions, brother. Say the question one more time.
How would the world be different if everyone was under consistent care instead of just the tiny margin?
Like, let's just say this, Scott.
Yep.
Let's say that 93% of the world's under chiropractic care and the other 7% of the world isn't under chiropractic care. How does the balance shift?
Man, so if we're thinking about a world where 93% of the people are under care, I mean, I don't know about going back in the day, my early influences of always questioning everything, George Orwell's 1984, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. We're talking utopia. We're talking where people actually have a connection to themselves and to others around them without having all of the interference. And I don't mean to use in terms of nervous system interference, but just literally knowing and accepting the fact that they are in the driver's seat when it comes to their health. And that is one of the things I learned at a young age where I'm like, no, this is up to me. This isn't up to my doctor. This isn't up to my chiropractor. It's knowing the principle that the body is self-healing, self-regulating. And if we can get everybody to digest that pill, I never remember if it's the red pill or the blue pill, but whichever the good one is, to pull them out, right, of the matrix and say, no, this is one of your responsibilities. This is the 5% of things that only you can control. The important stuff, your relationships, your spirituality, your health. You have the ability to do this, and we're going to show you how. Like that would be for me like the perfect scenario, like that utopian vision, because people have control. They're not relying on a broken system. They're not relying on a broken philosophy. They're not relying on broken science. They are whole within themselves, knowing every single day they get up, they are in control, and the decisions that they make now definitely either negatively or positively impact their health later on down the road.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiro Moguls, Local Gold, Chiro Thin, McCaffrey's Clinical Mentoring, and Chiropractic Rocks. Let's hustle.
That would be the red pill.
Thank you. I never remember that.
And what you're saying there, Dr. Scott, is chiropractic can reframe our culture. It can reframe society. It can reframe the way that people think about personal responsibility and accountability. It can reframe the way that people think about how they perform on a day-to-day basis and what they think and how they feed themselves and how they have personal responsibilities to take care of them and theirs. And I think that is it's a very important thing that a lot of people, they want to say, hey, doctor, fix me. Hey, I did this. Can you help me? And what you're saying is that when people have accountability on a day-to-day basis, there's less need for the medical model, and there's more need for bringing more people into the chiropractic lifestyle. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
100%. And it's not just the accountability and the personal responsibility. It's nothing ever hurt my heart more than when somebody would come in, and this happened with a pastor of one of the big churches here. And he came in, he had these symptoms of MS, and it was very early on. And, I learned from Dr. Nalda and Pettibon and Wogan and all these things, like Clear Institute. Like, I was so into the structure and the function. And I'm like, listen, like, let's correct your curve. Let's correct that atlas. We need to get the pressure off. We can do this. Like, I'm doing this day in and day out in the practice. We're seeing these amazing transformations. And he's like, yeah, I'm in. And then the next day I show up and there's a note from him on the door that says, please respect my privacy, but I can't continue. And I'm like, I never to this day found out why or what happened. This guy was a referral, well-known, tons of people in my practice, like, looked up to him, respected him. So to me, when there was a point when a patient would come in and we would take them through and show them success and get them on board, and then they would resort back to the old programming that says, no, it's my fibromyalgia, or no, it's my degenerative disc, or no, I don't have the ability to take control of this. That's what hurt the most. Those are the things that I could never disconnect from, because I'm like, no, we can do this. So I need to get better at communicating that you as an individual, you as the person sitting in front of me, have got this. You've got this. You can do this. You need to be able to take the red pill and just shift that focus and that energy in a different direction. And you can absolutely transform your life. But people are told that they have to rely on the external. They have to keep their well visits. They have to, get immunizations to be able to be healthy. Like, they're told all of this stuff that strips them of their own empowering being, that they have the control. So yeah, the accountability and responsibility is up to us in the chiropractic field, in the alternative health field, and even doctor. Like, everyone that is in a health related profession has that responsibility to do no harm, but we're doing harm by allowing the people to perpetuate those thoughts and the fact that they don't have the control. We need to give them back the control and back that ability to think that, yes, I can do this. And that's why it's so much more than, it's the principle, but it applies to everything else in anything related to health. It's that principle that they have the ability to do it. Sorry, I just went off on a little tangent there.
No, it's great.
Head scratcher.
It's a part of the interview conversation, is we allow people to express themselves. And that's the most important part about sharing people's stories, is so many people never get asked questions like we ask our interview subjects. So it's really cool to hear people, be able to expound upon their ideas and to share that with a larger audience. So it's really cool to hear what you have to say. One of the core questions we like to ask people is, where do you see the profession going in 10, 20 years?
Man, we talked about this today, and I think there's a huge opportunity right now if we can just remove the static between one another. That right now in this exact situation, so this is episode 150, and when you're at 1,000, people are going to be looking back. I can't do the math of how many years that is. I'm not good at that stuff. So whatever that is, 4 years, 8 years, they're going to look back and be like, man, that was a weird time period. Like, with what, if they were able to look at like what was going on in external, but then what was happening here on this podcast and in the profession, we have an ability to pivot. We have an ability to remove that static between the profession and unite, because right now we are the people that can, you can go back to history and look at the different pandemics and all this craziness that's going on. We have the communication, we have the principle, we have that your body is self-healing, self-regulating, you have an immune system for a reason. That message, like right now, this profession has an unbelievable opportunity not to shrink away, but to step up and fill that void. Because especially now in the world of social media, this is the first one of these things we've had with Twitter. Like, it's crazy. There's all this misinformation. If we could just step in and not shrink away, but remain essential in this time and just teach them like a simple conversation that their immune system is fit to handle this. Forget about BJ Palmer and all of the different techniques and the different, talking points that create static in the profession. Just step up and fill the void, care for the person in front of you, and it's going to spread, right? I guess that's a bad way to put it in right now with what's going on, but it's literally going because everyone's going to be talking about it. Like the practices need to step up and say what they can say within the boundaries so they don't get, shut down, but step up. Like we have an amazing opportunity right now to do that.
So what are some of your favorite marketing strategies? How do you spread the word through what outlet? Old school, new school?
So when I was in full-time practice, it was all old school. It was triple promo. It was, I don't know if it was Singer or Gold or whoever. It all just gets recycled. But it was community dinners, which I loved. I love doing community dinners, screenings. We screened everywhere. Most of my practice was built screening at the vitamin shop and gift fairs around town. The holiday gift market, the spring gift market, the home and garden show, and talks within the clinic. Nutrition workshops, spring challenges, and then we used to do shopping tours too, like take people to the grocery store and stuff. So we were primarily, our marketing budget was small. We were more grassroots, and it was really just having a conversation with people, having the staff empowered too, but having conversations with people at the table, saying, hey, like, listen, like this is our mission. This is what we're doing. You've seen the results. So simply like, who else do you know? Like, who do you know that has headaches? And this may sound so antiquated and so old in today's world of Facebook ads and funnels and all this other stuff, but like it worked because there was that human connection. So we'd see 30 to 40 referrals a month. And then the months that we did have screenings, it was just like, the whole staff did it. I wasn't there the whole weekend doing it. Like we trained the staff on how to do it. And then that was like a whole nother influx of people that we were never going to reach. It was like, where are the people? Well, let's go there. Let's go screen there. We screened at a bowling alley. We screened at car washes when I was in training in Texas, where I met my wife, who was working in a chiropractic clinic, like you did previously, Jim. I met my wife in that office. So it was all that grassroots stuff to answer your question, Luke. And now, if I was in the for the clinics that I consult for, I work with, referral is a big piece. So just asking the question. And then the corporate wellness talks are still big. They still work because people want that connection in the digital world of screens and all this stuff. Like people want that interpersonal connection. So I'm sure there's a lot of new age ways to do it, but I'm sticking to old school.
Well, a lot of the things you're talking about just make sense. And one of my mentors, Fred Schofield, would just always say, double-digit new patients every week. How long did it take you to get double-digit new patients this week? And I'm like, I would think, if you got double-digit new patients, you'd have a thriving practice every week. So if you get 10 new patients every week, you shouldn't have a problem where you get them from, as long as you're getting them.
Yep.
So I think that would be my saying to anybody out there is if you want to have a thriving office, you have to get double-digit new patients every week and follow what he did. Like Freddie would hand out 4 business cards every Monday or Tuesday, and he would say, here, I'm going to give you 4 cards, hand them to people that need them. So he'd pick a day where he'd give 4 business cards to every patient that came in, and he would just say, hey, give these out to people that need us.
Yeah.
And they'd go out and give these business cards to people. Before you know it, these things would return. It might not be this week. It might not be this week. It might be this day, but they're going to come back. Right. And that's the thing is if you do the marketing strategies and you build that referral style practice, you go out there and do screenings, you go out there and do the corporate, talks and whatever it is that builds your practice, you got to just get 10 new patients every week. And if you can do that, you can grow a business.
Yeah. One of my mentors used to say 80 new solves all problems. And I'm like, yeah, it creates a few too, like flow. But yeah, it definitely solves, like what you're saying, double digit every week solves those problems. And there's someone here local, Dr. Tabor Smith, He's just doing awesome stuff in the profession with his spinal hygiene movement, and he's working on a documentary. And I love he does like a ton of Instagram. The dude is like an Instagram dude. He's all over the place, and it's the same stuff every day. But I love when he shows like the office calendar. The guy is just everywhere. Like talk and workshop and talk. And I'm like, that's it. Like that's it. And he's got a thriving practice. It's amazing.
He's a good buddy of mine too. He's one of the
Cool.
One of the nicest people you ever meet in chiropractic.
100%. Yep.
So do you have a favorite app or technology to stay in touch and engage with your patients or practice members?
So right now it's, since I'm not in full-time practice, really the podcast, getting into the podcast world is because you can just talk like people there. You don't have to have a building and rent out a room and order dinner. You're just there. Right. So you get to talk into a microphone and people listen, hopefully. But I still think for the demographic that I still see, and my wife does it too, is text messaging, like that access to the software that allows them to text back and forth. And the auto scheduler has been huge for her. Her no-show rate is actually like non-existent because people just have the ability to go and do it themselves. So I think convenience is key. So not specifically an app, but the convenience factor, because that's people want to save time and they're always on their phone. So it's like, boop, here we go. Coming in tomorrow at 5 instead of today at 3.
What kind of responding software do you use, or does she use?
I think it's called Jane.
The Jane app, yeah.
Yeah, the Jane app, and I think we used Acuity or Calendly or Schedule Me. There was another one at one point too. We used to use I can't remember the tech, but Jane's working great for her. Now she's got a boutique practice too. It's pediatrics. She's CCACP. She's got birth fit certification from Mercier therapy. So it's really like based on fertility, kids and babies and mamas. And she works closely with the birth fit. So for her, it's like that works perfectly. But the Jane app's she's all cash too. So she doesn't have to worry about the billing side of things because I don't think Jane has that built out yet.
So let's talk about you a little more personally. What other podcasts do you listen to? Are you in the middle of any good books right now? And what are some of your hobbies?
Hobbies, right? I'll start with hobbies. Hobbies used to be golf. But in this season of life, I've determined to play less and spend more time with the kids. Because, man, having my first child completely changed me. And it changed my wife and I considerably. We were both high D's, drivers, just go, build, do. And then we realized we had a baby and we're like, where did all that free time go that we had to read books and play golf and do all that stuff? So my enjoyment now, man, is coming home, blowing up the inflatable pool, letting the kids play, watching our 3 dogs run around the backyard. We still do like to travel. Anything that has to do with water. I love being around water, always have. Living in Florida, living in Rhode Island, growing up in Rhode Island, never lived more than 45 minutes from the beach, still about an hour and 15 minutes from here. And looking at the most recent books, so I'm reading Darren Hardy's Compound Effect. I'm reading, what's on my list right now? What's over there? Principles, Ray Dalio. Patrick Lencioni's Ideal Team Player. I just pulled out Psycho-Cybernetics again. That's an amazing book if you've never read it. Really kind of opens up some of the pathways of what you've experienced and how it, the psychological aspects of it. And then Donald Miller's book, Story Brand, because we are in the building stage right now. So those are the ones that I have in my active stack off to my left here in my office.
And then what other podcasts get you inspired and fired up?
I listen to Entree Leadership, Dave Ramsey, for the business side of things. Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory. Talk about a guy pulling people out of the matrix. Whew. What else? I do have a sports itch that I still fit. So I have a couple of sports podcasts, but now that sports are kind of off the radar, that is one of my hobbies, football. I'm a big NFL fan, but my dude retired, so I think I'm going to retire from being an NFL fan also. He didn't retire. He left his team and went to Florida. So I'm just going to retire from being an NFL fan because it'll save me a lot of grief and, suffering in the future, because Sundays will never be the same. Lewis Howes. I like Lewis Howes. I tend to dabble a lot, so I bounce around. Daily Stoic. The Daily Stoic podcast, the little 3-minute morning kind of stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, like that's Ryan Holiday. That stuff is just crazy for me right now. Because especially with all the stuff going on around us, we're in a building phase. We got 2 little ones. My wife has a practice. I still see, I'm part-time practice, like stoicism. Ryan Holiday, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but like just his little 3-minute blurbs in the morning. Like I come in my office, I listen to Darren Hardy's Darren Daily. I get out my little 2x2 routine. I do my stretching routine. I listen to Daily Stoic, and like I'm good to go.
That's cool, man. A lot of stuff I wasn't aware of. Thanks for sharing that stuff.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So what are some social media links or websites people can go to if they want to learn more about you and your wife?
Man, I'm really bad. I have my partner is my integrator. He's the guy that knows all this stuff, Tommy Welling. So the new stuff is at Dr. Scott Watier on Facebook is my professional page. And then at The Fasting for Life is the new brand page. And my wife is Momentum Health. And that's in Katy, Texas. So you just search Momentum Health on Facebook. And then I don't know what her website domain is. It's connected to Facebook. Like I said, I'm not great at knowing what links go where. So when we launched our podcast, that was quite fun trying to learn all that stuff. But yeah, and then the podcast is The Fasting for Life. So everything is The Fasting for Life.
Cool.
Yep.
That about brings us to the end of this episode, unless there's something we didn't ask you wanted to go into.
No, I'm just really appreciative. I can't believe I'm the secret shopper 150. Like, earlier today, connecting the dots with you, Jim, on our call. It was awesome. Just thank you guys for being here. I feel honored to be on the list with some of the names that I've seen and listened to. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you for celebrating episode 150 with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a milestone. Thank you for being our guest tonight.
My pleasure. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you on the next one.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.